Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sandra Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have live from Edinburgh, Mr. Charlie Winton. How are you?
Very well, sir. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's bleak in Edinburgh at the moment, but that's pretty much 99% of our weather and our life. So yeah, it's as positive.
Well, summer's
as we
over
can
now.
be.
It's officially summer's over. You see, so it's like you've had your little ray of sunshine, and that's it.
We had one good day, and it was bikini weather, 18 degrees, and we all celebrated. But yeah,
Everybody runs out naked. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, they do call it tap south weather. So to be fair, yeah,
Okay.
It hits 18 degrees, and it goes. You'll just see a load of people walking.
You just think you're in a kind of like the Caribbean.
Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely.
No. So I mean, for people who are listening today, I met this gentleman. I'm calling him a gentleman because he's a gentleman. On an island in the middle of the Mediterranean, actually, a few months ago, and I just have to tell this story. It is quite funny. I know you didn't think it was funny at the time, but I thought it was quite funny. But basically, I'm on this Mediterranean island at a European Startup Summit, and this young gentleman walks past me with some very, very impressive trousers, or if you're American, pants, or if you're UK, pants, yeah? But the thing is that the temperature outside was probably about 35, 40 degrees, and he had some very, very elegant, woven pattern design that reminded me of my favourite book, Rupert Bear. So all I can say, I had to shout across the building, which was a very historic building, saying, "Oi, Mr. Startup Founder, I don't know what you call. Those are very impressive pants. Please come and talk to me." So yeah, and the rest is history. And then I found out what you actually did, which was remarkable. And here you are today on the G&T. So welcome, Charlie.
Thank you. And
I'm sure there's an insight to that story, which I know you're going to explain now, hopefully for the listeners, or the viewers if you're watching on YouTube.
Yes,
but it was a comedy moment, you could say, a comedy start to our relationship.
So it was a dark, stormy evening in 35 degrees of Malta, and I get accosted from across.
Accosted?
Yeah. From this lovely...
I was physically handling it.
Lovely gentleman.
I did not touch you, officer.
No, not at all. Yeah, that's what we'll go with. And I'm wearing my tartan trews, which is Scottish traditional wear, although I don't sound Scottish. I sound like a poor man's Jack Whitehall. And all of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, I'm in a conversation, and you're kind of calling... At one point, you did call me Welsh, which I thought was, I was like... And then, proceeded to sound they're better at rugby than us. But yeah, so, it was a chance meeting, but it was a very good one. And yeah, look where it's got us.
Exactly. I mean, yes, and I think it's probably because there was a bit of red in your pants. That's what it was, a bit of red. That's probably why that kind of distracted me. With the... I didn't see any dragons on it.
I didn't know you were a bull.
But they were stunning. I mean, they were stunning. I mean, I thought you were very brave wearing those things. I mean, obviously there was very, obviously there's Hawaiian shirts over there, and on the Friday I actually wore a Hawaiian shirt and met. I think actually you know him actually, Wesley, who works for the Maltese government. Oh, yeah. He's kind of a diplomat with a Hawaiian shirt, which is pretty impressive.
When you know you're doing a good job, you can wear whatever you want. The Borat Mankini comes out at the networking event.
I can't really see Borat. I can't really see Wesley in a Borat outfit. Anyway, that's maybe another episode. To kick off the episode, I suppose. I mean, for people that don't know you yet, but I'm sure they will do after this episode, and they'll be kind of like want to know more about what you're doing. It's a really, it's a fascinating topic you're working on, and could you just do a bit of an introduction and just explain what's going on in Charlie's world, and how come you were walking around a very historic building in Malta?
Well, those without a ticket, if you pretend you're meant to be there, you're let in. So I used to be a recruiter when I first started out on my job, and had a miserable time. Didn't really hate the job, but had a miserable time in the organization, and wanted to create... Well, I had severe mental health issues from working in that organization, and I wanted to find a way to help people, well, myself, and then people like me that were going through similar things, with actual tangible stuff that they could do to help their mental health, which is what I learned about. I really was one of those people that didn't kind of think about it that way. I just went, I'll get on with things. And I think that's quite traditional. And I wanted to find a way at looking at the root cause of how people are feeling and what we can do about it. So I started a technology company. I thought that was the best way to kind of scale that and support people. So created a business called OK Positive. And I was looking at a stat, like 99% of all startups fail or don't get past the first year. So I'm an average founder, but we've managed to last for 5 years now, and we're kicking on to bigger and better projects. But yeah, just wanted to find a way to help people that, like me, that were going through a situation, and a mindfulness video or a yoga workshop wasn't going to help. It's much more looking at what can people do for themselves, and that's what kind of led me to going down this journey and all the ups and downs of founder life. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster, as most people who are listening who are founders or were founders or will be founders will know. It's a hell of a journey.
That's interesting. So, I don't know if you can share, but what was the trigger? You said you got some mental health issues. How did that manifest itself? What was the? Did you realize, was there like a life event that triggered that, or is it just like the pressure of work, or your kind of just what was going on in your life, or all of that?
So really, because stress is actually, believe it or not, quite good for humans, and anxiety is a way that your body tells you that you're under stress. So you need to do something about it. So it's actually a warning signal. Very much like when you take painkillers, it's good to know that you have pain, because then you can look at that situation and try and fix what's causing the pain. And so for me, I've always been someone who, from a young age, struggled with OCD. I didn't know what OCD was back then, so I just thought I was a weird kid who would step on the pavement to avoid his family from dying, or think horrible things because you saw them on the internet or on the news. And that kind of, I didn't have a clue what that was, so I kind of buried that down. Got a bit better as I got older and a bit wiser. Well, I wouldn't say wiser, but older. And so I had all of that going into a workplace where it's very high pressure and stress. And for me, I didn't actually mind that. I was sent down to awards dinners in my first year. I was relatively good at the job because I could chat to people, and I love the people I work with. Actually, like, recruitment, for what it is quite an enjoyable job, and you learn so much on it. You learn how to deal with clients, people, admin, all the different elements of business and contracts and whatnot. But for me, the accumulative stress of KPIs that no one ever hits. As I said, I was sent down to awards dinners and I didn't once hit a KPI that they'd set. We had working hours from 8 till 6, which I'm not afraid of long working hours, but we had people in the office that were young parents that never saw their children because they had to come in at a certain time. They couldn't do the school drop, or they were back too late before bed. And so, like, these little things that built up for people, not just me, led to an accumulation of stress and overwhelm, which led to me having 3 or 4 panic attacks a day. And I was just used to, I pretended I had IBS in the business because I thought that was less embarrassing than I'm sitting in the toilet playing video games, basically crying. And I went, well, I'm wasting the business money because I'm in here an hour a day, roughly. And it's affecting my personal life. So there was a kind of trigger point for me where I realized that accumulation of stress, because I'm someone who loves to exercise. I'm someone who loves to try and stay in shape as much as you can. I used to play rugby before concussions took that away. But I didn't do those things because I was too tired. I was too spent from a day's work. I was having panic every day. I would then end up going to the pub, and I would sacrifice my health for social life and kind of hiding it away. And it got to the point where in my personal life and my friends and family and my now wife, I was snapping at and being grumpy, which is not how I like to live my life. It's not who I am. And so I was like, right, I need to make a change. This is not it. And I quit that job, but I moved to another job and started this on the side because I was like, I need to pay the bills, all the stresses that people have. It was an accumulation of things that eventually led to a point where I just started snapping at everyone. And no one wants to kind of live that way unless you're a certain type of person. But I realized from that point that I needed to action something myself. No one's going to do it for you. And for me, the root cause was quite clearly that job. So leaving that, I would learn, did that help? Did it not? And actually the next business I worked for, I was like, wow, this is easy. Like, the hours are great. They're flexible. The people are lovely, the same as it was in the recruitment thing, but we're not getting hammered every time. We're getting helped to make those targets rather than they're insurmountable and you're constantly put under pressure of losing your job. So it was an accumulation, but for me, like, panic attacks are something that if you've been through them, you know what they are. If you don't, it's essentially you can't think about anything else. You're just sweating, your heart's racing, you're lost, and you don't know what to do about it. And for me with OCD, very much I started thinking of the worst things in the world that could happen to me, to the people around me. And that over a sustained period of time is quite damaging. So I wanted to try and find a way for myself to stop that from happening, or at least understand it a bit more. And that's kind of where it led on to.
I mean, thanks for sharing that. I mean, obviously we didn't go into that level of detail before, but I appreciate you sharing that, because it's, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, and it's a phenomenon that was, I suppose, a bit like you mentioned at the beginning when you started to explain it. People just say, stiff upper lip, get on with it, yeah, get back to your desk, yeah, we're going to do this, it's all that kind of stuff. But actually, to then, I suppose, is it kind of like a thing where you had to stand outside yourself and look back at yourself and then decide you need to change? I mean, that's a big thing, isn't it? Because it's that, I presume, if you've been going to awards dinners and stuff like that, if you're performing well from a KPI point of view, then you get paid money. It's like a kind of a virtuous circle, isn't it? How you break that hamster wheel.
I never hit a KPI, not once, not one of the KPIs. The only thing I hit was my targets and goals, and I hit the money side. But they were sitting there going, you've only got 3 minutes on the phone. Like, you're meant to be targeted for 3 hours a day is the gold standard. And I was like, 3 hours a day on the phone? Who am I calling? Like, people were calling British Gas to be put on hold for 45 minutes. I just went, nah, I'm going out and meeting people and chatting to them, because I don't want to spend my life calling people that don't want to listen to me or speak to me. But the ones that do, I'll go and see, and we'll spend time together. And that's kind of human connection. And it's a vicious cycle, because I see a load of people who've moved away from high-paying, high-pressure jobs to go and do something completely different, whether that's freelance or consultancy or whatever it is, because they can't sustain that level of life. And fair enough to the people that do go through that and keep going all the way, but you'll find that they won't be targeted for KPIs. They won't be put under that pressure because they have that system that they do. And some people love it. I mean, I love dealing with people, so I love sales, but if you get me on a phone line where I just have to constantly call people and get shouted at, like, it's not satisfying for anyone in that job to do it. And I think a lot of people will put, and this is what I talk about, is the hierarchy of needs. So when you talk about like the outer body, looking at myself, really it was my behaviors that I noticed the change in, because we all kind of know who we are. We know if we like socializing, we know if we like reading a book, we know if we like, you know who you are and how you behave. If that radically changes on a regular basis, like, something's wrong. And so for me, that's like a warning light. And so I looked at the things that I was doing differently than what I was before. And it was the job was the main thing. And it was the constantly coming home with stress and taking that out on the people around me. And so that's not what I wanted to be, or what I wanted to do, or who I wanted to be. So you've got to make a change, and it's no one else that will do it for you, because the hierarchy of needs of people, your home, your finances, your relationships, your work, all these different things that you set goals for and you want to achieve, they don't, if you just pile up on finances, the rest is going to drop. It's not like you can be 100% on everything. And that's what they talk about relativity. Like, the richest people in the world will be miserable if, they have all the money in the world. You say, what's their problems? But they may have a really terrible relationship with their family. They may have a real stress situation at work. Whereas the poorest people in the world could also be the happiest, because they've got that family connection, the things that matter to them. And for me, the things that matter in life are family and experiences, and experiences with friends and family. That's what I spend my money on. And I've got awful clothes, apart from my lovely traditional kilt and shoes, which is why you saw the best of me.
Apart from those killer pants.
Yeah, exactly. Apart from that, that's where you spend the real money. But no, for me, that's what was important. And if no amount of money would have kept me in that job, and I was offered more money to stay, and I was like, I'm so out of here that there's no number. You could stick £1 million in front of me and I would say no. Like, this is horrible. Like, I don't want to be this person.
So it sounds like, I mean, you took a real ownership on it, and you've obviously then you've been going deep, you could say, on the topic and working out, what it is and how it could help other people.
Yeah, I went and studied everything, right? So I've never been, I've been to therapy since, like, in the last year, but for the 4 years I didn't go to therapy at all. I wanted to spend more money on my friends and family rather than on my own health, which is another problem, I guess. But for me, I was like, how can I help me, an average Joe that wants to know what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it, what I can do about it? Because everyone in life feels better with control, right? Like if you don't know what's wrong with you and you've got an illness, that's fear. You don't know, you can't control it. But if you know what it is and you can take a treatment for it, you feel better. Like in the same way that, oh gosh, if I don't know how much money I'm getting in next month, I don't know how to budget for it, therefore I'm out of control and I don't know what I'm doing. It's the same fear. And so I went, well, how do we break this down into a very, very manageable way of going, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? What can I do about it? And so I went and did all the studying of all these apps, all these tools, all these therapies, psychological models, and went, well, let's put it out for me, dummies like me, to go make it simple. So I'm stressed at work because of the kind of timelines and KPIs and deadlines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a to-do list and I'm going to tick that off and I'm going to get through as much as I can. Because I controlled that process, I was less stressed about the KPIs because at the end of the day, I could turn around to my manager and be like, I've hit 7 of these things on my to-do list. This is the max I can do in the time that I'm given. And therefore, I felt more in control. And then I was like, can we break that down into other areas of life? So I'm feeling miserable and anxious because I'm not exercising enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a 5K walk in the morning. Or it's just simple things. It doesn't even need to be that big. It could be, right, I'm stressed because I had a fallout with my partner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend some time, quality time with them. And if I can build that into a process that people can do on an ongoing basis, it's small incremental changes. It's not, oh, I need to change my entire life. I need to quit drinking, or I need to only exercise and not see people and focus on my body. Like we humans just go all in, or tend to go all in on one thing, or retract completely and don't do anything. So if we can create a model that's just easy for people to understand, that can go, right, what small thing am I going to do each day? And that, for me, when I looked at the research, when you look into all the psychological sides, it's those little bits of self-awareness that make the biggest difference. It reduces your likelihood of stress, anxiety, and depression just by understanding what you're feeling in a particular moment in your day and writing it down. So that's what I wanted to kind of build into a model that would help people and make it free for everyone to use, essentially, and go and charge companies because they're the ones that, sadly, in corporate world, kind of pile that additional stress onto people with operating models. So if we can get that happy balance, I think, of people being healthier in themselves, no matter how small it is, and organizations learning from anonymous feedback of how their teams are doing, how their staff are doing, and actually making changes, you're going to have quite a nice coming together of insight and change and productivity, all the things, all the tag words that people focus on.
And I suppose, so to go for, I mean, the thing you've embarked on, though, is you've actually embarked on being a startup founder, which, as we talked about briefly before we opened today's episode, is not the kind of the most boring activity you do in the world. It's kind of fairly full on. So what's you kind of kind of combining the topic with actually starting a brand new business? That's quite a potent combination.
Yeah, a lot of people say out of the frying pan and into the fire. So I think for me, it's understanding now. Like I people call it different taglines like resilience or strength or whatever you want to call it. For me, it's self-awareness. I'm in a position where as a founder, I will be working longer hours than I ever did in that recruitment job, or I'll be working shorter hours dependent on how I work and how I get the best out of myself. I used to do 14 meetings a day for a week on end, and I just get to the end of the week and go, I can't do this. And so I realized, right, I can't do this. So next week, I'm going to book out only 2-3 meetings a day, and I'm going to focus on 2 or 3 things I want to get out of each day. And I think a lot of people because of the way that we've worked, have always thought you need to be doing something. You need to just be doing something. But no one takes into account that in a workplace, half your day is spent on the loo, at the coffee machine, water cooler, in a meeting where you're not actually doing anything. So if you can get those 2 or 3 really good things that you can do each day, whether it's a meeting booked in with a great client, or it's a closed deal, or if it's even just sorting out a bit of your system, I was like, right, let's break it down into manageable things. So there'll be times during my week where I will switch off early and go and play golf, or I'll go and exercise, or I'll take a longer lunch. Like all these things that you can't really do in the corporate world to kind of fit around how I work. Because I know from my working days, from 8 or 9 in the morning till 11 is when I'm at my peak. Like I can get all of my day's work done, admin, proposals, information, finance, everything sorted in 3 or 4 hours. So therefore, what's the rest, and what do I want to get out of it? Rather than sitting there and just scrolling on LinkedIn, or I'll go and connect with a few people, all this stuff, and just because I'm at my laptop going, well, what makes me feel good? What's going to make me better tomorrow? Because there's times where I've gone for really big pitches and I've just been not there. I'm just, yeah, this is great. And I know for myself in self-awareness, if I don't want to show my technology to people, that's when I'm burnt out. Like if I go, I won't even bother showing you it because, you know, I've explained it. That's when I know and because I remember my brother said when I started this, he was like, this is a bad story to tell, but he's like, I always used to get dumped at school by girls. Every week I just get dumped by a girl, and then
what you or your brother
me
did?
And my brother laughed at
really?
that. He was like, I've always thought you'd be a great founder because every time you get dumped, you're like, no, I love her now. And you'd go and go, right, it's resilience apparently. But no, it's that dealing with rejection and failure, because you get it every day, every week, every month. People will tell you, and when it is your business and they say your platform's rubbish, or we don't want this because we don't like you, or all these different things, it can affect you. But if you have that kind of level of going, well, you know, remove yourself a little bit, focus on yourself and do what you can control and be self-aware about that, then it's manageable. It's not like everyone needs to burn themselves out or be working till midnight. Because
I just realised what your middle name is. It's Teflon.
Not quite. More, yeah, I don't know. Carbon fiber.
More trendy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting because it is that thing about I mean, suppose what you're talking about there is dealing with rejection. Yeah. Whether it's the most beautiful girl in the sixth form that really wants to take to the disco. I think it's still the discos or the prom or whatever. Or I presume in your case it would be an investor.
Yeah, like, it's a very similar process.
Like a VC or an angel investor or something like that. Very similar process. Okay, that's a good soundbite. Okay, is he behind the bike shed? No, why do you think it's a similar process?
It's because and this is the thing, when people always talk about life is selling, right? You know, in the same way that you are going on a date with someone, you're selling the best version of yourself. You never go in straight away and be like, oh, I play Dungeons and Dragons 4 times a week and I barely leave my house. You're like, this is me. I'm social. I'm fun to spend time with. It's the same thing, even worse, I'd argue, with investment, because you're going out to people that at seed stage or pre-seed, that side of things, which I've done, they're buying into you. So you're selling you, and you have to be on it all the time. And the numbers of how many people you need to meet, to how many no's you get, and you're getting hammered, and you're being told, no, this isn't good enough. I don't back you. I don't believe in you. Can hurt. And so it's the same process, dating, but for money rather than, well, that's a bad soundbite, but you're selling that best version of yourself and going, how can I persuade this person I'm the right person for them to give their hard-earned cash to? And there's high stakes on that, but everyone knows there's risk and all this stuff, and you've got brilliant things like SCIS and EIS that help negate that risk. But it really is a process of being able to take rejection from hundreds of people to get that one yes, and you're going, oh, that's brilliant, and that gives you a boost. But eventually, if people get 200, you don't know when it's not every 100 you get a one yes. It could be 500 and then you get 4 yeses in a row. But it's very, very demoralizing to be going through 500 conversations using your time and your effort to get bounced back every time.
I think that's what in talking to other founders is, because obviously I had a lot of founders on this show, is that they kind of like blow their minds about the volume of meetings. You know, they maybe say, oh, you know, maybe 10, and then they like you 10x that, and then you know you get to 200 and they're still going, ooh, you know. So it's very. That's what I find now is the heady heights of all this kind of investing thing, and then constantly find a pitch. You know, trying to get value added feedback. When you were talking about your, it just reminded me of a video that I saw of Henry Cavill. Obviously, you're a good-looking chap. You know, like to be the Henry Cavill of Edinburgh. Where I don't know if you heard it, he was playing World of Warcraft, and then his phone rang, and it was famous producer who was basically offering him the Superman role. And he missed the call, basically, because he was like at a certain level in World of Warcraft. So it just shows. Obviously, he did ring him back, and obviously the rest is history. But, just like when you just mentioned that little story there, I was just thinking about that. Sorry, we digress. So in terms of what it actually does, you said that because obviously a lot of companies that I've worked with recently and working with across the world is there's obviously a big piece about well-being. They say that they're putting well-being at the heart of their, or people at the heart of their strategy. What's your observations with that? Is that rhetoric? Is that real? Is there some poster childs up there that you say are really embracing it? Any thoughts on that?
There are companies that really want to do good stuff, and I'm not going to just bash the corporate world. People want to do things, but the problem is they focus on strategy and frameworks rather than actually evidence and impact. So, and that's where it's moving to, actually. Over the last 5 years, I've seen it move heavily from, right, we'll buy in this fitness app and we'll provide it for everyone, all the way through to actually we'll do a yearly survey because that's all we can manage. And quite often it's looking at allocation of resources. Companies now, we talk about this, and this is why I set it up, is culture, engagement, support, well-being, they're all the same thing. It's people operations. It's operations, actually, if anything, because a company can't control how you are outside of work, right? You can't control whether you drink too much or you're falling out with your friends or you're behaving different ways. What they can control is how your environment is when you come to work. But the problem is, traditionally, a survey is once a year, once a quarter, once every 6 months, if you're lucky. And there's no evidence of what
you might get a pulse. Yeah. I mean, when I was at Tesco, we used to do a pulse every 12 weeks. But then obviously you had the big annual, roll up and stuff like that, where you kind of like do 360s and stuff like that. So what you're saying, that the latency is quite
because things change, and ultimately. Let me ask you a question then on that. So when you're at Tesco, how often did you see the results of those surveys, and how often did you, even further than that, see an actionable intervention based on what was said?
So it was obviously, the pulse was obviously anonymous. It was qualitative and quantitative. It was more like a tracker, like it was a pulse. It was like, what's the heartbeat of the organisation? And then we had what we call a people quadrant in what we call the steering wheel, which is kind of how we ran the business. And effectively the chief kind of people officer would then do a review with the exec team, and then we'd actually take actions, and then we would actually have measures, and we'd then take specific actions. What's the what we call rapid action team, the rapid action plan to actually go after things that are the reds. How do you convert the reds to ambers? How do you convert the ambers to greens? So there was kind of like a traffic lighting approach to it. And so there was quite. Obviously Tesco's a big organisation. It's quite military in culture. Because obviously it's a big operation, lots of complexity. That was what we did there. The bigger deep dive, which was really the kind of the piece around where the manager got feedback from their direct reports, and then you got more in depth than 360s, was more like an annual process. Because just you could say the administration or the whole process was just like a big process, and it was a lot more in detail.
Yeah, and I think
so. That's the kind of that's my last experience of corporates and how they did it, and it was similar in other big corporates that I worked with. So.
See, that's a good model to do. But if you're doing those different elements, one thing I would say is that managers and direct reports getting feedback from each other in an open forum can also be quite detrimental to managers. It's one of the things that I've seen. When we used to have that functionality in our platform, we took it out because quite often the manager will be looking, what are they saying about me, and it will be personal rather than process and operational. And it's the same thing I say about mental health for individuals. Even if you're a big organization, you can't be everything to everyone. But what you can do, and the key thing for me is that it's clear communication. So if you look at let's just say a hypothetical. The trend is the IT system in our big corporate is causing everyone delays at work. It's a massive point of stress. Right, what will we do about it? Right, we're going to send someone in to fix it or to look at a new system, which we will then put out, and it will hopefully improve the speeds of that. boom, send that out to everyone across the business and go, right, what do you think about this? And then measure the intervention. So you looked at what they said before, you've done it, look at the impact afterwards. Brilliant. Okay, that's listening to them. And then each of your quadrants or your teams that are in silos, say it's Liverpool, Lincoln, London, whatever it is, have that same process, but on a minor, like a micro scale of going, right, what's it in here? Give everyone that anonymity. So it's not, I have to turn up next day because I've just absolutely hammered our manager for being a really bad communicator. More it's going, okay, the theme in our site is communication. So what we're going to do is we're going to book in training for the managers and the individuals. And therefore, you're building a culture of, you said, we did. You can't be everything to everyone, but if you're looking at a company-wide thing, it builds that inspiration of people in a business that they are part of it. Even if you're a cashier in Tesco's, as opposed to the CEO, you're seeing that your feedback and voice is being listened to. But the main thing that we've actually seen is, I've seen corporates and companies that have put people through 7.5 hours of training in a week for a purchase order system, which on top of what they do on a day-to-day basis means they're going to be working late every day. What people really need within an organization is
that sounds exciting.
It's it's a humdinger. And what are you going to take in from that?
Can I have a front row seat for that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting. It's like Lord of the Rings. It's that level of excitement. But no, I actually love Lord of the Rings. I'm just going to caveat that. But essentially, what I've learned over the last 5 years is that people within organizations hate admin. Everyone's always kind of hated admin. Oh, I've got this proposal to do. It's going to take me an hour and a half. Or I've got this purchase order that I need to fill out. It's going to take me 45 minutes. And oh no, someone's asking for my attention because I've got a meeting and whatever it is, and it's delayed. I'm going to have to do this when I get home. So essentially what we're trying to look at is using that AI functionality of going, how do we bring all of that information to people instantly? So instead of 7.5 hours of training on a system for a purchase order system, dump in all of that training into an AI agent. So when they're next on the purchase order system, they type in, how do I click the link? And it tells them how to do it. They do it. They don't have to bother the trainer. They don't have to bother whoever it is that's running that IT process. They don't have to spend hours trying to connect with the right person. And essentially, we're making life easier internally, because that's what businesses need to look at. It's not, oh, everyone's struggling with, I don't know, their social life outside of work. The company can't do anything about that other than give them more free time. But if they're not doing any social life activities, there's no point in giving them more free time. It's looking at small incremental changes and also just bringing information to people. Because as I've said, the same thing in health anxiety. If you know what it is, like traditionally, everyone has gone, oh, I've got a lump or a bump. I'm going to Google. SEO driven, negative engagement is always higher. So shock horror, it says you've got a tumor, you need to go see your doctor immediately, and then you've got a 3-week waiting list or whatever it may be. And you're stressing about that for 3 weeks because you think you're dying, because that's the first thing that comes into your head. Now, hang on, if we can take all of that information from health, NHS, public information about all these different topics and things, and they can type in exactly what they're doing, what they're going through, what do I need to do? It will explain all the different things it could be, saying it's not likely to be a tumor, but these are the things to look out for. Look out for these areas, bullet points. These are things you should be doing. Have you done them? If not, do them, which could be contact your GP, log a thing, send in an application, send off a test. And suddenly you're in control and you know what it is. And therefore you can focus on your daily life without stressing every 5 seconds about, oh, I've got to wait for 3 weeks to find out what the heck this could be and what's going on. It's the same in workplaces.
So the idea with that is to make it more accessible and easy to use, but also, as you mentioned, I mean, when you started to talk, I thought, is there an AI angle here? Because that's what people talk about, repetitive tasks, and they talk about, in Dan Telegram I had on a few weeks ago, he talks about everybody's going to have this digital twin. Everybody's going to have a digital twin, and it's going to help them with their daily work. Yeah. So that the human can concentrate on what humans great about, creativity, people connection, and collaboration, stuff like that. Whereas the machine type of activities that traditionally people have been dragged into, kind of then can become alleviated by using smart tools around them. So that sounds like you're going down that route. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's an assistant, or we call it an agent, that will learn from you. It will learn from what works and doesn't. For us on mental health, it's completely anonymous, but what it will do is it will remember you for you, and it will give you your insights back and say, we know that you've been stressed about this particular part of work. These are things we think you should do, and here's how you do them. Or if it's content or resources, or if it's even a policy within the business of how you do that thing. It could be, you are really nervous when it comes up to appraisal time with your manager. Here are some steps of what you need to do. Here are some like resources that you can use to do that and build up your case for more money or for a promotion or how you feel. Rather than going in blind and going, I don't know what I'm doing and I don't have any information and I'm just going off the cuff. And so that assistant side, I see a lot of people who are afraid of AI and things like that. And it's going to affect people's jobs. Don't get me wrong, kind of automated processes, purchase orders, things like that will eventually be taken by AI. But what that opens up is an opportunity for people.
That's no good. I want to do that work.
I know, exactly. But there are some people who do like doing purchase orders and that's their sort of thing, or it's their sort of activity that they enjoy getting into the numbers. What it will allow them to do is upskill or find a new way of interpreting that data and using that.
Go to a more strategic or more value-added activity,
which is more satisfying for people that want to progress.
Correct.
So it's going to make life easier if you use it in the right ways, and that's what we're focused on, is making sure that it's the right ways on mental health, physical health, workplace health. Looking at how can we make tangible changes to people's lives where they can see the evidence of what's going well and what isn't, and just work on themselves, and to do that without having to speak to someone if they don't feel comfortable or they can't afford it. Having someone that's coming from a validated, like we don't plug into the internet, we never will. We only take it from our clinical board, psychological resources, the models, the peer-reviewed research, the health, NHS health information, and experts in workplace well-being. We're not going into the internet. If someone types in, I want to buy a car, it'll say, I don't know the answer to that. Whereas if they say something around, I want to find a way to support my son who's getting bullied at school and he's got ADHD, it will give them the information on what to expect with ADHD, little things they can do each week from those sources, from the charities that work in that field and the experts. So it's essentially that assistant for people to go through their day or week or month with.
And when you did the original work, when you had that epiphany, that like light bulb moment, you presume you scanned the market or you scanned the whole world, and you couldn't find anything that existed like it. Is that right? Or it was all very fragmented? Is that what the problem that you saw?
Incredibly fragmented. And I think there's been real success on things like sleep and mindfulness exercises, like even stuff that's not psychologically approved, like ASMR. There's millions of people that use it every day. And for me, it's a plaster to a situation. So say you're having a fallout with your partner and you're really stressed in your relationship. Go watch this mindfulness video. It may calm you down. It may well calm you down in that moment. But the issue of your fallout with your partner is still there. So nothing in those kind of platforms would actually say, here's a video to calm you down. And once you're calmed down and you feel better in yourself, go and have this conversation about this and do this and prioritize this to help your relationship. See what it works, see if it works or not. And none of those platforms then look at what are the things that work and what don't. And we have to ask people. How do we ask people? We make it anonymous and safe for them. How do we make it that we learn from that? We can see what areas that people are struggling with and what areas improve based on interventions. And from a workplace perspective, you've got pulse surveys, you've got communications platforms, you've got loads of data, you've got all this insight, but none of it merges those things together. None of it brings all of that together because it's a difficult thing to do. You need buy-in from a company to want to do it. And you need buy-in from the employees that want to make a change in their lives. You're educating two customers. One that you're not charging and the other one that you are. And we always focus on the individuals because if we're supporting them, then the company will get results regardless. But we also need to make sure they're involved because if a company says, we don't give a crap what the staff are saying, which we've had, believe it or not, then it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Like
I was just going to say, on this topic, it's like the communication and the change management of the right way of collaborating. That's absolutely essential, isn't it? Otherwise you're just not going to get adoption.
And involve stakeholders, involve every stakeholder. Everyone in a business is worth it. It's not just the well-beings team or the people operations team's job to make sure everyone is thriving in the workplace, or at least surviving, because I think quite often we go, everyone needs to be happy all the time. It's just nonsense. It doesn't exist. The world doesn't work like that. But if you have a worrying trend that you're seeing impact your staff, that's something you really should focus on before it's too late and people leave, or even worse, they struggle in their personal lives because of it. And so it is for me, I think it's a change in mindset, and I'm seeing it now that people are starting to look at impact rather than the systems or things that they use. And for us, the benefit to that is we can integrate with those systems. We can sit alongside them. We can be a hub that's for those individuals that links in. If they go, oh, I want to know how many holidays I have, and it will tell them, or take them to that system, or even integrate to it. So if they say, I want to book some time off, or I want to see what my pension is, it will bring that information to them from that system. So it's like just being that, we're not a tool that the tech is the vehicle, it's not the answer. The action that the individuals take for their lives through our platform is the answer. And it's the interventions that the company makes on the other side based on their employee feedback, which is the answer. Not the tech is just a vehicle for it. It's the pen, and the rest is the ink.
And I suppose the encouraging thing you're seeing is you're seeing more and more companies now. I mean, I suppose your biggest challenge as a early stage business is actually awareness of what you have. Is that the biggest growth hurdle, or what's the growth? You know, because obviously it sounds great what you built, but obviously then there's only so many hours in a day, unless you've got people, I don't know, banging, the recruitment thing, banging the phones. How do you get this thing out there? How do you communicate this value and make people? Because it sounds like every organisation in the world should really be looking at this and embracing this.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the startup conundrum, right? We've been quite lean because I've looked at the market and seen that well-being, while it was very popular during COVID, has now kind of gone by the wayside, and it will come back again. And now I'm starting to see it come back again. But if you're dead in the water, there's no point. But the caveat to that is that gives us more time, but also means that we don't have a 50-strong workforce that can go and raise awareness of what we're doing. So we tend to do that through partners, through webinars, through learning, through networking events. So I try and find ways to build relationships with people where really I do just want their feedback. I'm not a cold seller that goes, hey, buy my platform. It's very much, I'd like you to see this approach. What are you doing currently? What can I learn? And I think for me...
You mean you've not got like a tattoo that's like a QR code, where you can like sign up here?
That's what the tartan is. You scan my trousers, and it will take you straight to cash out, or checkout.
Straight to Stripe.
Yeah, it's straight to Stripe. But no, I always joke about this, that when I first started the business, I pitched against a Series A funded mental health platform that a lot of organizations would have heard of. And we pitched to a very big investment firm that were looking at their staff. And I'd met someone who knew someone who introduced me to someone, and I got a meeting with them. And I pitched against this 50 million funded business and sat there with my little prototype. This was in the first days. And I went, this is what I'll do. This is the approach. This is how it'll work. And they went, we're going to choose you over this other platform. And then I thought, well, basically that gave me validation. But at the same time, I tried to be a bit cheeky and say, well, it'll be £90,000. And I wanted them to basically build it for me, which they kind of clocked onto, saying, that's a lot of money for this. We thought it'd be like 20 or something like that. And I was like, no, 90.
But it's called customer funded.
Yeah, customer funded. That's what it was, a co-development. So sadly, I lost out on that. But for me, that was validation in my mind that the approach worked, because I'd beaten a business that's working with some of the largest organizations in the world to that pitch. And so for me, it is very much about getting in front of the right people and having conversations. But this has led me to conversation with governments. I'm in with 2 governments at the moment with proposals out. Large universities, very, very large corporates that would never have even spoken to me before. Because if you look at our website, look at the stuff, we're a startup. We're not all singing, all dancing in that field. We focus heavily on the R&D of the tech, the learning that we get from that, what works, what doesn't.
The models.
And the models, because ultimately, for us, we've realized that we will now work with other businesses to customize this technology. So it's not OK Positive, it's their own. But we're learning through that as well. We're looking at data and research of how we can help people in those communities, because we're not experts in the field of learning and development. But if a learning and development platform wants to have that wellbeing side, not only can they commercialize that, but we're also able to help hundreds of thousands more people through that. And we're happy to do that. We're not precious about who we are. We're precious about the validity of the mental health support within it, but also getting that data for research. Because we've done research in the NHS, we've done research in schools, we're doing more research across the UK in particular on what works, what doesn't, and can we reduce burnout and compassion fatigue. And we've seen initial indications that we can. So we just need to do it on a bigger scale.
That's fantastic. And I suppose for people that obviously are listening to this episode, that we started off on a Mediterranean island. Can you maybe explain why you were on a Mediterranean island? And what was that experience? Because obviously other people have probably gone through similar things, and useful to get some kind of sense of you, because you spent, I think, quite a bit of time there, didn't you?
Yeah, there's no such thing as a bad meeting. Is one of my biggest takeaways. I've met people over the years that 3 years later introduced me to something, and I got introduced to this program through Supercharger Ventures to go to Malta to look at investment or incorporation there as a minimum, which would open you up to EU grant funding and being able to support people on the island, but also then taking that into Europe as well. Due diligence, we ended up being there for about 2 or 3 months, incorporating, meeting, networking, going to these events where I was lucky to meet Yusuf, and just looking at it from a different perspective, because in the UK it can be a bit of a bubble around how things work.
By the way, did so. Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, I'll get you your $5 later. In fact, I've got it here for you. I'll send it in the post. But yeah, you're only worth a $5. No, but and we were there to see a different perspective. It was full on. It was a lot of work. It was incredible to meet a different culture of people that are looking at mental health and how they see things. It's very similar, but just a couple of stages back from where the UK are and actually implementing things and spending money. But it will come because they're looking at the same things as EU regulation and ESG, where the S is they're going to be fined if they're not evidencing impact. So differently to saying, oh, we've provided something. No, you need to evidence the impact of what that's doing. And that's what our platform does. So it was a really chance sort of thing. I met a great guy called Janos a couple of years previously. And then he had the Malta Accelerator. And I was like, yeah, I'll apply for this. And was there for three months.
Well, was that the first one you'd done?
Yes, I'm in the NatWest Accelerator, RBS Edinburgh, which is brilliant. A great community and a network of entrepreneurs and founders, a lot of whom are now my friends, but not in the same sense of incorporating in a different country and looking at investment from government or grants from government and projects, which we've got 2 that we've got lined up for October and then early next year. So it was really successful in that sense. It's different to the ones we have here.
Valletta's a bit different to Dundas Street.
Similar looking buildings, to be honest. Sort of.
No, you're not far wrong, actually. No, I mean, I thought it was quite interesting. I thought it was quite inspirational the way that the government supported that event that we met at. And I think, as I mentioned to you before, if they could pull off all the things that they're planning to do, it would be a very good location. I think it's obviously, it's not the size as some other geographies, but it's got a lot of potential.
Oh, massive amount of potential, and they're big focus on ed tech as well.
The Supercharger Ventures seem to be a very professional and progressive outfit from what I can tell talking to them as well. So it's good to see.
Yeah, they want to make a change, and I think it's an incredible island. I was inspired by it because my grandfather flew over there in the war for the RAF. Was shot down, actually. It's a crazy story that I believe should be on Netflix, where he got shot down and managed to get himself onto an Italian boat where everyone was actually dead on it. But, he's then wondering if they're going to come and finish the job and bomb, or is he going to be rescued? And I wouldn't be here today had he not been rescued from that. So when I was there was a load of history. We went to the Air Museum. There's a massive amount of history in Malta, some brilliantly diverse cultures. The weather's incredible and the ocean's 5 minutes away from you at any point. But as a country, they're looking to make changes in terms of digital technology. It's a great place to be for well-being as well. So it was an incredible experience. It's somewhere I'm going to be returning to for some of these projects. But I just think if you don't take these opportunities to go and try and take a risk, like going away from home for 2 months when you're planning a wedding is always quite a tough one. But managed to get through the 2 months away from home. But it was just, hell of an experience. And I think any entrepreneurs or founders that are looking at these things, select them or choose the ones that you think are best fits for your business, but go and try these things because you never know what it will lead to.
Well, there's also that there's the camaraderie and there's the learning from that cohort that you're in as well, I suppose. But incredible. I mean, I was going to say, so usually what we do is we cover peaks and valleys. And then, you kind of kept it a bit quiet. Obviously, you've had quite a big peak recently, based on walking through a vineyard with a very lovely lady called Lucy.
Yes.
So I kept that one quiet.
I'm a married man now. Yes. No, it was the best week of my life out in France, and it was the best day. Still buzzing from it. I haven't got the wedding blues just yet, but apparently they hit you quite hard. But no, that's the thing. For me as a founder, my personal life has never been better. I've also, since doing this own process, because I use my app every day, because if I don't, you can't practice what you preach. And I've got into the habit of it, and I haven't had a panic attack in 5 years because I just know what I feel, what works for me. But my personal life has never been better. My work life, like anything, there are stresses that will come onto you. And as long as you have ways of managing it, I've found that that's made a massive difference to me as a person. And yes, I'm living the dream at the moment. Just could do with a bit more money and a few more clients closing deals. But couldn't we all?
Everybody could always do that, yeah. But is Lucy in a similar field, or is she kind of like completely in a different area of what she does?
She
what keeps
works
her
in
awake
marketing for a large drinks business in Scotland. So different fields,
Okay.
but she gives me a lot of kind of ideas and inspiration around marketing, which is something I'm really bad at. As you can tell, I don't market things very well. Fields, but a good understanding of kind of world markets, profit and loss, basically how to position things and how to win an audience, because it's interesting in the sense of what we're doing. We're trying to educate, not just market or sell a product, because we don't sell to individuals. So we're very much, it's not a marketing exercise for us. We're not going to be on TikTok going.
It's not like a B2C play, is it? It's not like download this app and then subscribe. It's a bit more
subscribe for a
flavor.
$5. We want it to be free and democratic for basically everyone and equal for everyone to have access to this, because it's bespoke to them. Like, you could be two similar people in the same experiences or the same walks of life that will have completely different experiences of that stress or that anxiety or that depression. So therefore, we need to find ways of getting that to people so they've got that alongside them. And even if it's just for when they need it. And from a marketing perspective, I've learned a lot about that I'm not here to market and sell an app to individuals, and I never will. But if people say, oh, I've been struggling with, or I share how I've been feeling, people then share their experiences. I always say, well, I use this app to help me, and it's free, and just learn for yourself what works for you, what doesn't. It's not about. So that's what I've learned from Luce as well, is about how you market things or educate.
The say was, it's a bit like the individual. It's like the personalization element of what you've done. It's effectively, you've got your own. Everybody's got their own world, their own walled garden. Because they're actually obviously training the model and giving feedback to the model, but also it's customizing it, personalizing it on an ongoing basis, plus you're adding more content into it. So it's a very interesting. I mean, the days of, you could say dumb apps, are gone. It doesn't. It's just like you said. It doesn't provide a sufficient intervention from a well-being point of view to get you into that target state, does it? It doesn't hack it.
And the irony
is, you've got to do what you've got to do to try and personalize it.
Yeah, and the issue is, it takes effort from people. Like, you could say this in anything. If you don't go to the gym or you don't exercise, you're not going to feel any better. You're not going to get in better shape. It's a habit that you've got to create. It's like brushing your teeth. We all brush our teeth every morning. No one really that I know goes, I can't wait to brush my teeth this morning. It's so exciting. You do it because it's good for you. So it's the same thing in this, but the app is designed to take them into an actual insight that they can do for themselves. That's the bit that's important. So just going, for us, it's once a day and saying, oh, I'm a bit tired today. I didn't sleep very well because I was up all night watching TV. So tonight I'm going to read a book instead. You're not reinventing the wheel, but you say, oh, actually, that really helped. The next day I slept like a dream. And so, okay, that's a behavioral habit that you want to carry on and create. And that's the difference, I think. Quite traditionally, people have gone, this will solve your problem. And if you look at it in anything like business to business leads, we're going to solve your problem of not having enough leads. It's like, no, you need to help me to help solve my own problem. Like, that's where I think traditionally we've treated human beings as kind of children that don't have a say in how they can deal with their own problems. It's kind of like, go here, do this, try this. This is important for you.
It's like a tell model.
Yeah. As opposed to actually saying, here's the power for you to make a change for yourself. The key is that you try and make a change if you feel that you need it. And yeah, it's unique to every individual.
Well, so the thing is, it's quite funny because on the way here, that's where I am now, is I was talking to one of my friends and talking about James Clear, the Atomic Habits author, because effectively that, think about that, you've got to take ownership for it. And you've got to, it's 1% every day kind of thing. So it's interesting that you should get him on a webinar.
Yeah, but that's
James too on a webinar with him.
It's one of the interesting things about Atomic Habits that's really interesting is I was at a networking event recently around well-being and talking about habits. Quite often, once again, it really depends on the person that it is. Like there's some really unmotivated people and there are some really motivated people. And there's not enough research or evidence into, for me, particularly, like how do you differentiate those people and what works for them? Because you can't have a framework that just works for everyone. That, okay, the most unmotivated person in the world who's really struggling in everything now is suddenly an ultra marathon runner because they every day have done 1%. Because if you try and improve 1% every day, eventually you're going to top out, right? You get to 100 and you're like, and you go, well, what do I do now? And that's the problem is we always try and create a number or a figure or a goal to something. And while I think Atomic Habits is a really good book of getting people to do those sort of things and actually build those habits, a habit could be as simple as, walking to work rather than taking the bus. Or it could be getting up and doing, reading a book for an hour after work as opposed to going to the pub and drink, or whatever it is that your goal is. But goals will change and things will change and motivations will change. Life occurrences, when you ask me if I had life-changing events, I've lost my aunt and uncle to cancer, who I was very, very close with. And that was when I was at my toughest point since doing this business of I was crying in the shower every night for 2 weeks. And I was like, well, right, not telling anyone. I'm doing the same things I did when I was in recruitment. I'm just hiding it away and burying it down, getting on with it. And I went, okay, let's practice what we preach. What am I feeling? Feeling grief. Why? Because I've lost a loved one that I cared massively about. What can I do about it was the key bit. And I went, right, I can't bring her back, can't bring him back. I'm going to speak to my cousins and just catch up with them, see how they're doing. Ended up having phone calls with them about how they felt, and it made me feel so much better, and I'm not crying in the shower every night. And I've started to process things. And now, what do? What's in my control? Catching up with their sons and daughters about how they're feeling, when do we next catch up? It's small little things, and that's not a goal. There's no goal there.
I wasn't something simple. But it's amazing the benefit of that simple action.
It's not my goal to go, you know what, I want to cry a little bit less each day. No, it's like, I don't like how I'm feeling. This is what I'm going to do about it and see if it worked. And it did work. And I don't need to put a target on it now, because quite often, if you have people of different personality types, people don't like targets. Some people hate targets. Some people hate goals. Some people love them. Some people need them. Some people need someone else to tell them to do it. For me, motivation's a really key thing. I will tell you this. Every time I speak about someone looking after themselves, my app, they go, I don't know. I don't know if I need it. People tend to not care about themselves as much, believe it or not. They tend to care about loved ones. So if you say to I would always use this example. You say to a bunch of mothers and say, do 5K a day, it will extend your life by a year. And they'll try it for a bit and, I can't be bothered, I'm a bit tired today. If you said to those mums, run 5K a day and it will extend your son's life by a year, I bet you it's the very first thing that they do every single day.
They'll be running every day.
They'll be telling every single person that they know to do it as well. And that's it. It's motivation. It's not, you can't set a target and say, get up to 50K and then you're winning. People aren't always bound by winning. And that's why we see success in things like elite sports or elite business. And you see all these people at the top because they sacrificed a lot of the other stuff for winning. And I think it's motivation is something that we really need to start researching a lot more of, as opposed to, trends and things like that.
Or looking up to certain individuals who maybe haven't got the right balance.
Yeah, that's another thing. I get really frustrated with, you mentioned a CEO, a founder recently, and people will take their word as gospel because they've made an exit of X amount or whatever it is, and that's the goal, that's the target. What's your target? Exit, make money, and now sit on a board or do this. For me, the journey is the most fun bit. I always talk about this a lot with anxiety as well. When I was at my peak anxiety and stress during that recruitment job, when I left the house from work and walked all the way to work, I'd be sweating by the time I got there because I was rushing from A to B. I just needed to get there. Actually, when I slowed that down and stopped and looked around, the most enjoyable part of that was walking to work and going, look, I'm looking around, I'm seeing things, I'm taking it in, I'm looking at the beautiful Edinburgh city and the buildings. And I was less stressed. I wasn't sweating when I got to work and I was in a panic and my heart rate was elevated. That had gone. It's the same thing in founder life. When I read these books about founders that have exited and are on their yachts or in the Maldives, it's not as interesting to me as speaking to a founder that's going through the very same thing that I'm going through. It's very easy to say, we took £100,000 loan and I lived in my parents' garage and, it was the best decision I ever made. No, I want to know how you're feeling when you're sleeping on that garage floor and what you're thinking, what you're going to do next, what's happening next. And so for me, I'm keen on writing a book about that, where I've got all of my notes from this business. I'm writing it as I go. So you're getting the truth of what I'm going through. And
warts and all.
Yeah. And it's not just warts and all. It's like, I made this decision. It was rubbish. This was why it was rubbish. This is what went well. This is something to look for. How do you start a business? You go to...
We're going to call it the Charlie Diaries or something.
No, I can't tell you what I'm going to call it, because when it comes...
Charlie,
it'll be anonymous.
You can't call it Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Charlie and the Startup Factory.
I'm not going to swear, but it's going to have a swear word in it. But it'll be anonymous. It'll be anonymous. So it's essentially anyone can be a founder. And this is the thing that really annoys me is I was lucky to have a friend of mine who had run a business. So I sat down, bought him a beer every day after rugby and said, right, this is my idea. What the heck do I do now? And it was simple. Breakdown, £12, company's house, register your limited company. Brilliant. Now I'm beholden to management accounts in a year's time. What a management account. And suddenly everything, how do I get this app? Right, I need to go here. How do I get these people? How do I get investment? All these things that you're asking questions of, giving people just that experience of this is what you're going to go through for the first 6 months. Be prepared for it. And if you can get ahead of the game before you start it, because so many people will not start a business because they're afraid of those things. They're afraid of they don't know what to do and I'm not good enough. And everyone's good enough to go and do this. It's just whether you want to. And that's the key. Like my dad always taught me a difference between an idea and a plan. I always had great ideas when I was little. Like, I want to travel across America. Until you book those flights and plan your route, there's no plan. It's just an idea.
Well, that's what you say about ideas and execution, isn't it?
Yeah, same.
It's kind of like ideas and plan. That's obviously for doing that, because I think that'll be a fascinating book launch, especially when it's anonymous.
Yeah, no.
You send the invisible man to the book launch, something like that.
Oh well, the publisher will probably know who I am, and I won't.
Anon.
Yeah. I'll be the new Banksy of writing, but it'll be rubbish. So I'll get like 5 sales, and then it'll become priceless over time. Like, what was that?
Exactly.
Who did
Well, didn't you see that Banksy where they were stealing they were in East London somewhere, weren't they? They were stealing the sign that he created off the road. I mean, like, it's just like, okay. No, thank you. Well, thank you for coming on today's show. I mean, I think you're on a very, very interesting path. I mean, thank you for being so authentic and transparent and sharing, because not everybody does that on these types of kind of episode. So I celebrate that. Much gratitude for you for doing that. And I wish you all the best with Lucy. You're keeping that quiet, cheeky monkey. Oh, by the way, I just got married. It's like, not that I was vying for your hand or anything like that.
I'm taking.
Jesus, wow. But yeah, I mean, hats off to you, and I think you're on a really amazing mission with OK Positive. So I wish you all the best with that. And I suppose if anybody wants to find out more about that, what's the best way of knowing more about it, getting involved in it, helping you out,
connecting with me, Charlie Winton on LinkedIn, going to our website, which is www.okpositive.org, all one word. But yeah, really for me, it's just, I want to connect with people. I like to help other people in the space. I think collaborate with other people. That's, as I said, we're using our technology to work in conjunction with other people to make a difference to their communities. So yeah, just connect with me and find time to chat, because I'm always open. And also founders that are looking to start a business, if you want to hear some ugly stuff or some good stuff, I'm happy to share all of it. It's
sleep. If you want to sleep on the garage floor with Charlie, just call him up. Yeah.
Not quite. I don't have a garage, but yeah.
You can buy one later. Okay, so that was Charlie Winton, co-founder or founder, I think, isn't it? Yeah, founder. Ooh. Founder and CEO of OK Positive, and that was Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. Tune in next time for another episode. Thank you very much. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.